Then there were four. This is College Football 134 coming to you a day later than planned as we react to the College Football Playoff Quarterfinals and preview the semifinals coming this week. That is Andrew Caley. I am Douglas Farmer. And Andrew, I do not care what my voice sounds like. I do not care what anyone says. I think the quarterfinals were a great time, even if three of them were still effectively blowouts.
Yeah, I loved all the games this weekend. I don't care that we only had the one real nail biter with Arizona State and Texas. I thought Georgia and Notre Dame, once that game finally got played, was terrific. It was everything I'd hoped from that game. And I don't know, I'm really happy with, and ESPN and the powers that be should be really happy with the four teams they've got in the college football playoff, the Final Four. All this stress, teams don't deserve to be here, blah 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 blah.
Oh no, college football's dying. Oh no.
We have four blue blood programs in the national semifinals. They couldn't be happy. I think obviously they'll hope for not a Big Ten rematch in the national championship, but other than that, I was thrilled with the games this weekend. It was a lot of fun. I thought even Boise State put up a little bit of a fight on New Year's Eve for a bit there before it got a little sideways near the end. Just overall great product, great fun. I loved it. Anyone who is still hating on college football after that round, I don't know what to tell you.
I'm going to skip our corporate verbs for one moment because the way you describe those four blue bloods, I know plenty of Notre Dame fans who have said, I'm not going to go to the semifinal. I'm going to go save my money for the national championship. Folks, this national championship game ticket is going to be the most expensive ticket of our lifetimes. If this is Notre Dame, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Texas, Penn State, Ohio State, Penn State, this is going to be $1,000 nosebleed ticket. This is going to be, no matter how it ends up, that Big Ten rematch might see some suppressed values, but otherwise it is going to be such a blockbuster, at least in hype leading up to it.
Yeah, 100%.
Now, before we dive into the biggest storylines of our four semifinalists, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame, let me say the key podcast verbs. Please, everyone, subscribe to College Football 134 on all your podcast platforms. Rate it, review it, like it, adore it, thank it. Verbs. If you are watching this on YouTube, subscribe to the Covers YouTube channel. That is how you make corporate think nice things about us. That is our 2025 resolution. We have 2 more shows planned this season, but the only way you'll enjoy all of it is to subscribe to the Covers YouTube channel. As much as we praise the podcast feed and love your rating and reviewing there, if you want all the content to the end here, it's going to be the Covers YouTube channel to bring us home in addition to one of the shows being on the podcast feed after today. Let's discuss those quarterfinals. New Year's Eve, Penn State 31, Boise State 14. The stat line we need to mention, Ashton Jeanty, 30 carries for 104 yards, long of 26 yards. That cost me some money. 3 Maddox-Madsen interceptions. The Boise State defense gave up 2 explosive touchdowns. It was a game worth watching. And I do not mean to justify Paul, but can we just – it was never going to happen, right? This was never actually going to happen this time around. That's just a reality sometimes.
I think so. But the problem with that is I still don't really know – we don't know if Penn State is battle tested yet, right? SMU and Boise State are solid football teams. They are, but they are not an Ohio State. They are not even an Oregon. They are not a Texas.
Did you say even in Oregon? Did you say even in Oregon? Boy, you have really come off that train. We'll come back.
We'll come back to that. Don't you worry. It was tough look. But Penn State. It's the same questions, right? Sure, you wrote a column about we have to appreciate what Notre Dame has done in winning a bowl game heading into the Sugar Bowl, like a playoff game that had to mean something, right? So, yeah, we got to give James Franklin some credit for winning these playoff games. He has done it. There are 2 playoff games. He's in the national semifinal, but playing Boise State and SMU is not the same path. When you compare them to what Ohio State has done at this point, going through Oregon and Tennessee, it's just worlds of difference. And so we just don't really know. We don't really know at this point. And yeah.
I want to reiterate on College Football 134's behalf. Correct me if I put words in your mouth. We are not saying this should not have been the seeding. We are not saying buys should have been appropriated elsewhere. Conference championships matter and need to matter. Paul can complain as much as he wants. He's just making loud noises, which is why I exacerbate my lost voice by mocking him. Sometimes it's just going to be that the lower seed wins. That's just what happens in tournaments, folks. That's a reality that we should embrace, not criticize.
Yeah, I would say Ohio State probably should have been ranked higher than Penn State since they had beaten them in the season. But other than that,
championships matter and need to matter.
The
other, all 4 buys lost. So I'm just going to keep mentioning conference champions that lost. Texas 39, Arizona State 31. That was in 2 overtimes. I'm going to need some help here. How'd this go from 24-8 to 24-24? This was when I was on the phone with an airline pacing back and forth in front of an oyster bar. So I didn't really catch that as it happened. I know it wasn't turnovers. I know Texas's post-game win expectancy was still north of 90%. How did Arizona State suddenly force 2 overtimes?
Cam Skattebo. Cam Skattebo was just like, get on my back, Sun Devils, and let's go. Honestly, though, like, it was obviously a trick play that got them into the game there. The Arizona State defense did not play poorly in the game, and they got a stop right after that touchdown, like, which was not expected. Like, this game was low scoring at half. I believe it was 17-3 at half, cashing our under for us.
I know you're first to have under cash.
It did, exactly. But it was tough going. It was tough going for Arizona State that they missed a couple field goals, I think, too, early on that didn't help. But Skattebo made that big throw. Quinn Ewers, we can talk about this a little bit more. He threw a timely interception, which also helped Arizona State's momentum in that one. And like, Skattebo wasn't great. Like, he was getting stopped and he was everyone was talking about he was thrown up on the sideline or whatever. But he was still doing enough to make them respect him and respect that offense. And yeah, they got it done. It was one of the most exciting college football games I had seen in a while. And it looked like they had him. It looked like they had him dead to rights, 4th and 15 in the first overtime after scoring that first touchdown. And then you got to credit, like, Quinn Ewers is part of the reason they were in this situation, but he sure as hell got him out of that situation too. That throw on 4th and 15 was phenomenal. Like, he adjusted his protection at the line. They came at him. He stepped up, made this beautiful throw. Now, I think that Arizona State call was a little interesting on 4th and 15. I don't know if I would have sent the house on him in that situation, but hey, you gotta go for broke sometimes in those situations when you're trying to pull off a big upset. But credit to Quinn Ewers for battling back, and the Texas team may have gotten by the skin of their teeth, but that doesn't change my thinking that they might be still in the conversation for best team in the country, sort of thing.
I was at my plate of char-grilled oysters, which is a different conversation of how great those were, for Texas's last possession in regulation and the 2 overtimes. So at that point, I was caught up, and I enjoyed.
We want to talk about the targeting?
Char-grilled oysters. Let's move forward, folks.
Okay.
I was impressed by Quinn Ewers. I will always advocate for the blitz in that moment. Your defense cannot lose the game. It can only win the game. Be aggressive in that exact type of situation. Give him the credit you just were. 20 of 30, 322 yards, 3 touchdowns. I am going to go out on a limb and say maybe his abdominal injury was lingering longer than we understood. And he's starting to look a little bit like that guy we saw make some real NFL quality throws against Michigan, which is when we started to talk, Texas, you might be a real thing.
The real thing. We talked about. Yeah, we talked about how Quinn Ewers early in the season, we talked about how he was the guy. It was not going to be Arch Manning because Quinn Ewers is clearly the better quarterback, maybe the best college quarterback in the country in that conversation, sort of thing. And I think it's true. I think this injury, whatever it was, abdominal, whatever, it was hampering him for a while because he looked much better in this game.
Now, before we talk Texas later, since I'm saying these nice things, I want to note over my shoulder here, you see, in addition to my background, I've got Bevo now over my shoulder, thanks to friend of the show and huge Texas fan, Dan Omataya. Dano's been a little salty with me since the preseason when my bracket included Georgia winning the SEC over Texas, which, you know what? I feel like I was vindicated on that. Dano sent this, and I will give him this acknowledgement while Texas is still riding this high. You've got to do that now because, folks. Ohio State looks pretty good. Ohio State 41, Oregon 21. Wasn't even that close.
Was not that close.
Do I need to say it, or are you going to tell me that
I'll take my big L on this one. Like, sorry, it was what it was. If you had told me this would have happened, I would have called you crazy. I would have taken some alt line that you would hopefully have given me in a friendly wager, which we forgot we did have for the Texas game.
I just ignored it.
We ignored it. Okay. Anyways, if you had told me that this was going to happen, I would never have believed it. But once again, I'm going to say Ryan Day got out of his way and was just like, you know what, Jeremiah Smith, you are the best goddamn player on this football field. And if you go back and look at some of the tape, like, yeah, he is phenomenally fast and phenomenally physical, but like, he's a good wide receiver. Like, he has these awesome little cuts in and out of his breaks. He was turning ducks around in circles. Like, it was phenomenal stuff. Shout out to Will Howard. I've been a bit of a Will Howard hater too, because he's done a phenomenal job in these 2 playoff games. And he played great in that Oregon game earlier in the season as well. Just can't get by Michigan for some reason. And I can only blame Ryan Day for that and nothing else. It's just, they look dominant right now. It's what you predicted early in the season. It's one of the best rosters they've ever had. Yes. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. You love getting your praise. Douglas was on Ohio State very early in the season. The defense, the 8 sacks of Dylan Gabriel, I thought was like that was stunning. Like, that was like, okay, this is next level. We're taking this. They found that extra gear, which we thought they had, but we haven't really seen it. And then that Michigan game kind of makes you forget that even further. Yeah, they're dangerous. And we talked about this like after the Tennessee game. Like, if Ohio State's playing like this, it's gonna be tough for anybody to beat them.
My personal notes outline here starts off with, we need to just recognize college football rivalries. You get in your own way. Everybody around you is worried about that Michigan game. Even transfers like Will Howard start to worry about that Michigan game. It is the beauty of our sport. The next 3 lines on my personal notes here are boldface font, I told you so. Boldface font, I told you so. Boldface font, I told you so. Let's see here. Goodness. Oregon finishes with negative 23 rushing yards because of those 8 sacks. So even remove those, and I think it was 33 rushing yards. That's absurd. Oregon is a pass-first offense, but that was just such a physical performance. You said Ryan Day got out of his way and said, hey, Jeremiah Smith, go. I think Ryan Day got out of his way and said, hey, Jim Knowles, go have a good day. Go show your aggression. Oregon had no recourse as they were just physically obliterated. And as impressive as Jeremiah Smith was and is, I mean, his second touchdown, he could not have been more like, he's the best player in the country, and he's that open, and his second touchdown. Oregon, do better. But I was his most
doing
impressed.
Though. If that's what I'm saying, it was his doing. It's like his skill got him that open.
They need to sell out more. But I am still more impressed by Ohio State's defense. Ohio State doing that on defense was the biggest statement.
It was a huge statement because that was what Jordan James was able to rush for 115 yards in that early season meeting, right? Like they were able to match that physicality from Ohio State in that first meeting, and they just couldn't this time around. It was impressive to watch. I was really, really impressed by what Ohio State did.
And these are the reasons Ohio State is down to plus 110 on the futures market, which is absurd. After the whole season, we never had anybody lower than plus 350, plus 400. We didn't have a dominant team, and now here Ohio State has shown up and has arrived as that dominant team.
I've seen even money at some places too.
We should get to that last quarterfinal. Before we do, first of all, I was at the Sugar Bowl. New Orleans, it was absolutely amazing to see a city take that terrible New Year's Eve hit and then have its immediate response be, we are going to be even more welcoming to our visitors right now. That was astonishing. One of the city's nicknames, I learned this week, is the city that care forgot. But to me, New Orleans is the city that I never care to forget. If nothing else, it is even more of a necessity these days that I get to an LSU game and enjoy a Saturday night in Death Valley. Might not be in 2025, but I assure you it will be in 2026. And then there was a Sugar Bowl, Notre Dame 23, Georgia 10, and it wasn't that close. It was much more lopsided. Notre Dame's game plan could not have gone more according to plan. It was so according to plan. I think the biggest drive of Marcus Freeman's head coaching tenure was a 12-play, 41-yard drive that ended in a punt. It took up more than half the fourth quarter.
It was so crazy. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that before. It was incredible stuff. Incredible stuff. I think as much as people love to hate on Carson Beck, his absence was severely felt in that game. We talked about it, like Kirby Smart can talk it up all he wants. Yeah, we had so much time to prepare for this Irish defense with our backup quarterback. No, you could tell he was a backup quarterback in that game. It was once again another really impressive performance. And I want to go back to like first round of the playoff when people were still harping about like, oh, who deserves to be in and who deserves to not be in. And we're not talking about the fact that this Irish team is a really good football team. This is a good football team. Like, they can win the national championship. I don't want to, like, I know you've got people out here that listen and are from that area, but I don't want to get their hopes. They look national championship worthy to me at this point. Riley Leonard does just enough with his arm, the balance with his running, and Love in the backfield. Like, it's awesome, but it's all predicated on the way this awesome defense is playing right now.
First of all, I assure you, you are not getting any Notre Dame fans' hopes up. They already are.
They're always up. Okay.
Well, you go and beat Georgia, and anybody in the country should be that enthused after beating Georgia. Georgia is what? 51-5, 52-5. You know, I know it's directly in front of me on the screen. 52-5 in the last 4 years. 3 of those 5 losses to Alabama. And now Notre Dame joins Mississippi as the only teams to beat this version of Georgia. You mentioned the absence of Carson Beck. You remember now, Gunnar Stockton had that nice 67-yard completion to Arian Smith that then involved the official running into the player stepping into the official's way. Let's be clear. It was on the player. Yeah. You remove that one completion. Gunnar Stockton otherwise averaged 5.39 yards per pass attempt. Notre Dame knew, and Marcus Freeman literally said, we didn't believe that we could lose this game by passing yards. Notre Dame knew Georgia's not going to move the ball. All we have to do is not screw up. If we can avoid the fumble, that you force that fumble, Georgia loses. If you avoid that fumble, that's all Notre Dame had to do, and it knew it. It was very impressive, and it shows how high their floor is with this defense that you're describing.
Yeah, and the way they were able to suffocate Stockton was just impressive, and it was, like you said, it was expected. Like, I think even take away, you go back and you look at that scripted, even with that scripted drive against Texas in the SEC championship game, he still only had 4.7 yards per attempt in that one as well. So it was not trending in a very good direction for them in this one. And they couldn't get, obviously Etienne has been banged up all season long, and they haven't been able to run the football the way they'd like. And yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting time for Georgia. This isn't, the NIL is a thing that affects this team, I think, and a team like Alabama more than anyone else. They used to just be able to sit on their stockpile of 5-star recruits and guys go on and the next group comes in. But with guys wanting to be starters at other places, like, that depth gets hurt a little bit more. And you saw that in the backup quarterback position there.
I don't know if it affected at quarterback. It definitely affected running backs and offensive line for Georgia in that they could have supplemented him a bit better. But I think Gunnar Stockton was always going to be Georgia QB2. I was talking to some Georgia fans behind me at the game who struck me as knowledgeable. I was like, hey, what was the hype when he came in? And they were all very enthused about him. I've got to think there are some very uncomfortable conversations going on with that coaching staff this week of, can he be our guy in 2025, or do we got to go into the market and find us something new?
That Oregon kid just hit the market the other day too. They'll be shelling out some dollars for him. Can you imagine what if they go after Quinn Ewers too? Here, Quinn Ewers. Here's $12 million. Come to Athens.
But
that would be something.
We should focus on the 3 games ahead of us. But this is a thought in my head that Notre Stockton in 3 halves against top tier defenses, 2 of the best defenses in the country, has not looked at all like a title winning quarterback.
And you don't need, like, Georgia doesn't need a superstar quarterback. Like, Stetson Bennett is not a superstar college quarterback. He was a guy who did not turn over the football, made a few nice plays every now and then, and had some really good skill position players around him to help him out. And that's what they need to get back to if they want to get back to a national championship.
I'm going to ignore their Stetson Bennett slander and move us forward. We
Slander?
are next set to record on the week after the semifinals. We will then also have a live show on YouTube the afternoon of the national championship game. Yes, I said they have convinced me to go live one more time this season to make sure we end this season of college football 134 with a bang. Admittedly, Andrew, our playoff bets have brought some struggles. You are now 4-6 on the playoff, neg 1.92 units. A few props have gone very much against you in the quarterfinals, as well as your foolish belief in Oregon. I am 4-8, down 4.5 units. I stand by pretty much everything except the apparent severity to Jeremiah Love. His injury is he was hardly asked to do anything against Georgia, which then underscores that Notre Dame still dominated Georgia. We are going to right this ship in the semifinals because, again, I stand by pretty much everything. The first semifinal being the Orange Bowl. Notre Dame has only a week between playoff games. That was a change for obvious reasons. January 9th, 7:30 Eastern. Notre Dame is currently a 2-point favorite as of Saturday, January 4th. A 2-point favorite, total of 46.5 against Penn State. And you and I, we don't even need to go through notes because our list of bets here will cover every avenue of this game. And I see you are going for the jugular right off the top.
Well, let's just go for it. Notre Dame -1.5. They are outside of Ohio State, who we kind of thought could do what they were going to do. I've been the most impressed by the Fighting Irish so far this postseason. I'm just really enjoying watching the way they play defense, like what Al Golden is doing with that group right now. They're fun. Like, it's a fun football game to watch. Even though it was 23-10, like, it's still a fun football game to watch when you turn into the Irish right now.
Stats are fun.
Yeah. And I think that they're going to be able to do what they do best against Drew Aller. Now, Drew Aller has been like, I don't know how to describe him. What's the best way to describe Drew Aller? Like,
he has shown all of the NFL tools you expect. He has, for significant portions of his career, seemed too much like a Penn State quarterback. Now, is that his fault or is that James Franklin's? Is a different conversation. It should be emphasized. This is his 1 year with offensive coordinator Andy Kotelnicki. You saw the drop-off at Kansas in Jalen Daniels when Andy Kotelnicki left. The quarterback development seemed to struggle there at KU. That quarterback development seems to have picked up in Happy Valley.
Yeah, so he's a guy with all the tools, like you said, who are still kind of waiting to be that guy, right? And I think this is a really bad matchup for him in that sense because besides they have Ty Warren and they have 2 really good running backs, I think that they sell out to stop the run in this matchup and stop Singleton, stop Katron Allen, and then just let the guys on the outside work because despite having Ty Warren, the outside guys aren't like those explosive playmakers that you'd kind of like. And Notre Dame can play man up on those guys. And then you just let Al Golden kind of get crazy with those blitz schemes like he's been doing these last few games. And I think it proves a problem for Drew Aller in this one. I'm going with Notre Dame -1.5. I love what Riley Leonard has shown. He doesn't need to throw for a ton of yards to be effective. He just has to make a couple of good throws here and there, keep the opposing defenses honest. He looks healthy. He's been running a lot. I think he can run against this Penn State defense. And they are an aggressive defense with Abdul Carter trying to get after the quarterback, but it'll be interesting to see how his legs counteract that. Do they run some draws up the middle? Do they just get him moving like right away to kind of negate that aggressive pass rush? I think they do. I think they have the game plan for it. And like I said, I haven't seen enough from Penn State through the playoffs. They put up a good fight against Oregon in the Big Ten championship game. They looked very mediocre on offense the last time they played a defense as good as Notre Dame's, and I'd say that's all the way back when they played Ohio State earlier in the season, and they only put up 13 points. I think six were offensive points in that game. So give me the Irish. I think they're going to the national championship.
I prefaced all of that with, we don't really even need to preview the game, and then you leaned into something that I should make sure we note. I am pulling up some numbers here that are our good friend Parker Fleming's. You can find him at collegefootballinsiders.com. These are after conference championship weekend. These do not factor in any of the playoff yet. But you notice that's the number one drop back defense against the number two drop back offense when Penn State has the ball. You've heard me say many times, nobody can throw on Notre Dame. Nobody has. Gunnar Stockton just proved that true again, just like Louisville did, just like USC did, just like Indiana did. If anybody is going to insist on trying, it is Penn State. Penn State doesn't default to the run if it's struggling to throw. It has the 35th highest passing rate over expected in a given game state in the country. If this is becoming a problem for Penn State, their answer is going to be to throw the ball some more. So that's going to be such a fun matchup. You mentioned Al Golden. How does he make sure that Drew Aller doesn't find a rhythm? That pass rush is going to be intriguing. Number one passing defense in the country against the number two passing offense should sum up this whole game, which is why I'm going to throw in a bet here that's going to surprise some people. I'm taking the over. I'm taking the over 46.5, neg 110 at FanDuel, because I think Penn State is going to be so stubborn and then at some point so successful throwing the ball. I think Penn State is going to find a few scores through the air, and I think people are going to be too critical of Notre Dame's offense last game. Notre Dame's offense didn't need to beat Georgia. It was not the plan for Notre Dame's offense to beat Georgia. I think Notre Dame has more offense than we're giving it credit for. We saw that against Indiana. Indiana's a really good rushing defense, and Notre Dame ran through it. I think Notre Dame is going to embrace this game like more of a shootout compared to the Sugar Bowl rock fight. I saw somebody call that just a game of headbutts. This will not be a game of headbutts, and Notre Dame knows that going into it. I expect more Irish offense to compensate and to outdo Penn State insisting on throwing the ball, and at some point, just numbers-wise, if Drew Aller throws it 30 or 40 times, he's not Gunnar Stockton. He's going to find successes.
You think he's going to throw it 30 or 40 times? He threw it 39 against 39 against Oregon, but he only threw it 20 times against Ohio State. Do you think they could look back at that and that was a mistake, or like did they try to run the ball too much in that matchup?
Penn State does not turn to the run when they're struggling. They insist on throwing because that is their best approach. Their offensive line is best in pass blocking, not run blocking. Everything about this offense is going to argue to throw the ball, and it's going to struggle at points because Notre Dame's defense is what it is. All the praise you give it, you know I agree with it. That will be the matchup to watch, and that's why I want to echo your Notre Dame by 1.5 with a surprising over 46.5, because I think Notre Dame knows complimentary football in this one means the offense has to carry the load.
I'm going to fight you a little bit on this one, actually, and we're going to go under 23.5 in the first half. You can get that at minus 106 over at FanDuel. I've been a big Drew Aller fan ever since he came up, and I'm wanting him to be that guy. I want him to be that guy. He just hasn't been that guy.
I will go clip early in the year of you just outright acknowledging your criticisms of him. I will do it.
Of course, I'm criticizing, but when he came into college football, I was a big fan of him. I thought he was going to be the guy. He was going to be the guy who leads Penn State to like glory, and maybe he is. Maybe he's in a situation to do that right now, but I haven't seen it in a big game where he's like taken over a big game. And I think he's going to struggle. Maybe he does get in a rhythm later in the game. I don't think it's in the first half. Maybe he settles in the second half. You said 30 or 40 times. His pass attempts in this game is 27.5. I might go bet that right now too. But is it higher? His pass attempts?
No, I'm saying it should be. I'm saying bet the over.
Okay, I don't think it's going to be like the Big Ten championship game. I think this is going to be closer to the Sugar Bowl that we saw. It's going to be controlling the clock, and since the little bit of that Irish defense is the run defense, right? 64th in success rate against the rush. Like, they've got two great backs, so I could see them trying to establish the run game in this game. I think it's low scoring early. Give me the under 23.5 in the first half.
I will gladly fight you on that. I like when we disagree because it usually goes my way, and we can both win. Me saying Drew Aller is going to throw the ball a lot is because that's the offensive game plan I expect from Penn State. And I'm saying they're going to score because if Drew Aller throws the ball 30 times, he's going to average more than 6 yards per pass attempt. He's not Gunnar Stockton. He is going to complete some of these. He is going to hit, I'll set you up here, Nick Singleton for some gains. He will hit Tyler Warren for some gains. He is not going to struggle like Gunnar Stockton did just because Drew Aller is that much more experienced, that much better, and with a more dynamic offensive coordinator in Andy Kittlenicki than Mike Bobo down in Georgia.
Well, he does struggle a little bit against good defenses. That's been his problem, right? Like he panics a little bit when guys get pressure on him. And what does he do? He dumps it off to Nick Singleton. So I'm going to take Nick Singleton over 26.5 receiving yards in this game. That's minus 115 over bet 365. So Penn State has played 4 games that have been reasonably close this year. That was SC when they had their big comeback. Ohio State, obviously, they lost that game. Minnesota, which was a surprisingly close game, and Oregon in the Big Ten championship game. Singleton in those games, 4 receptions for 39, 6 for 54, 6 for 37, 4 for 43, a minimum of 5 targets in those games. So what happens is guys get after Drew Aller, and he's like, oh, damn. And he finds his check down, and his check down guy is Nick Singleton. I like him to do that again in this game because I've said it many times. I have a strong belief in Al Golden and this Notre Dame defense. So they're going to do that. He's going to find his check down, and he's going to go over this receiving yard total in this game.
I am a big fan of that bet because it's an extension of the running game. You mentioned Notre Dame's defensive rushing success rate ranks 64th in the country. It's because Notre Dame is often willing to give those 3, 4, 5, 6 yard gains. You saw Georgia was completing slant pattern after slant pattern after slant pattern. Notre Dame was content to make those, allow those, trusting it would then make a tackle. And if Gunnar Stockton has to string together a 12-play drive, he's going to make a mistake at some point. It's the same thing with those rushes, and it's going to be the same thing with these checkdowns. Notre Dame will not just suffocate Nick Singleton in the flat. They will let him catch that and then trust they will make a tackle after a 7-yard gain and see what happens on 2nd and 3. So I think he's going to get a bounty of those opportunities somewhat because that'll be Notre Dame's defensive game plan as well as Drew Aller's overall tendency.
Yeah, they're really good at limiting those explosive plays, right? Even like 64th in success rate, but 9th in EPA per rush, and obviously they lead the country in EPA per dropback. So they are very good at keeping everything in front of them. But hopefully it just happens. We get a few, like I said, 4 or 5 targets to get us into that 30-yard range and cash that bet for us.
Let me throw one more bet on this game because if I am suggesting a shootout, a relative shootout, if I am suggesting Drew Aller has enough pass attempts to eventually cause damage, if I am suggesting Notre Dame has to rely on its run game, then that needs to start with Riley Leonard. Jeremiah Love is clearly not 100%. I do not know anything more than that. They did not ask him to do anything against Georgia, which really emphasizes that Notre Dame's offensive game plan was, yeah, okay, whatever. We just don't make a mistake. We're not even going to put Jeremiah Love in a vulnerable position. Riley Leonard had, let's see here, 13 rushes for 91 yards if you adjust for a sack against Georgia. No, this is not 2021 Georgia, but it is still an excellent
still
Georgia
a really
defense.
good team.
He had the most carries, the most yards, and the highest rushing average of the Notre Dame backfield. In a shootout, you need him to open up the defense with his legs. That will include at the goal line. Give me a Riley Leonard anytime touchdown, plus 110 at Bet365. They are going to need to score. It's that simple. If I am suggesting what I am suggesting about how this game will go, Notre Dame is going to emphasize its offense that much more. Penn State has a rather good red zone defense. Give gives up only 2.6 points per scoring opportunity, number 6 in the country. Notre Dame is going to turn to its most physical and most consistent rushing threat, which, yes, is its quarterback at the goal line.
Yeah, and I believe this is kind of the same thinking you had when they played Ohio State earlier in the year, too. I believe you had a Will Howard touchdown taken away from you in a very upsetting manner. But
it was a profitable prop this season. It was a profitable prop this season.
But
it cost me last week. It's a profitable prop this season.
The thinking is in the right direction there, so I like this bet a lot.
Okay, if you mentioned Will Howard, we should go ahead to the Cotton Bowl. January 10th, 7:30 Eastern. Ohio State is going to effectively have a road game. And I suspect many Ohio State fans are going to approach it like many Notre Dame fans are of, I'll save my money for the national championship game. So the Cotton Bowl could be very much burnt orange. Ohio State is a 6-point favorite, the total of 53.5 going into the Cotton Bowl. And we should note that Ohio State, as we said earlier, plus 100, plus 110 to win the national championship. Those numbers are deflated a bit. Just the futures market at this point is a questionable decision. This game, I will be surprised if Ohio State does to Texas what it did to Oregon. Let's go ahead and grab Parker's numbers once more, and I want to again give the disclaimer. These are from before bowl games. These are from after conference championship weekend, which is why it needs to be emphasized that, yeah, Parker's numbers from after the regular season kind of, oh, look at that, favor Texas, which is me saying this game could be real tight. And yes, these numbers are suggesting neither team gets to 20. This will be our headbutt of a semifinal.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
I am looking forward to that. Can you convince me at all this will be a blowout?
Well, yeah, but I also think it could be a blowout either way. Like, both teams are that good. Like, Texas is good enough to blow out anybody in the country if they come in with the right game plan and they don't play poor football. Like, Ryan Day is capable of coming in with a poor game plan. Like, we know Ryan Day is capable of screwing things up. Get out of here. But so this is really funny because I saw you tweet yesterday, I think it was, or maybe the day before. So I don't know what today is. My days are all messed up. Today is Saturday, so it was Friday.
Today is Saturday, January 4th.
It was Friday, and you tweeted something out about like recency bias and Texas, and I submitted the early picks and predictions to covers the day before that, and I was like, recency bias. This is not what we've seen from these teams. All like this is strictly a line that is looking at Ohio State from the last 2 games, and a little bit Texas barely getting past Arizona State. So super recency bias. I looked at Parker's numbers too, and I was like, yeah, this is how I would line this game. Maybe not I'd maybe give it a little bit of an edge to Ohio State, like maybe give them 1.5, 2 point sort of thing. But
really, I would have it at 4.5.
4.5. That was the opening line. I think it's closer to a field goal. Because when you go, like, you look at those numbers from Parker's 1 and 2 in EPA margin this year. If you look at these rosters, if there's a team out there that can match Ohio State's talent level, it up and down the roster, it's Texas. Like, we know that's the case. I can make an argument that they have the better quarterback, that the Longhorns have the better quarterback in this game. You get a little eye roll there, but
I thought I'll allow it.
And for all those reasons, and then you add on the fact that like this line just got hammered. Because we're recording today, best bet, I'm taking Texas plus. You can find a 6.5. It's out there at BetMGM right there at mine right now. But I might wait. If I'm the general, like if I'm one of the guys listening to this show, I think it keeps going further, right? Like, we're getting to the point in the college.
I think it.
I know it's the key.
6.5 is an outlier.
I know but we're at this point now. We're getting close to like. It's like college football is not the Super Bowl, but the Super Bowl is the only game in the NFL where the public really drives the market. We're getting to the point. We have 3 college football games left in the season, and people who are betting on a ton of games a week are now focusing on 3. Like, we've got 3 games left, and there's a lot of attention on these games, and a lot of these people betting are casual bettors, and they're looking at Ohio State being like, man, they kicked the crap out of Tennessee. They kicked the crap out of Oregon. Texas has struggled. They haven't beaten anybody this year, blah, 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 blah. But you and I know that this is still a very talented roster, and they can keep this game close. They can 100% keep this game close. So if you're giving me nearly a touchdown with a team that is in the argument for best team in the country for talent-wise, like, give me the 6.5 points. I think, and sorry, I got to get back. I rambled over my own point here. I think with that added attention, we could see 7. I know it's a key number, and I know there's a fear that books could get hammered at that number, and that's a liability. But I wouldn't be shocked in this situation if it happens. I just wouldn't be. So if you say 6.5 is the outlier, go get the 6.5 now. I'm comfortable with the 6.5. But I think we could see a 7 at some point too.
I agree with you at 6.5, and I am just going to outright say I don't expect it to move to 7. I think it got hung up at 6, and I'm surprised BetMGM still has this 6.5 on the market. What you saw me tweet on Friday was my quarterfinals reaction column, and in my quarterfinals reaction column, I said, before I drive out of Louisiana to get to Mobile to fly to Minneapolis, I am going to go hit this 6.5 at BetMGM because it is on its own. I like that 6.5 because it is that outlier. When I saw Ohio State at 5, I'll tell you that I bet that expecting it to move. I did not know when it would get hung. Once it got hung and I saw the outliner, hey, Ohio State win this by 6. Win me both bets. I like your 6.5 because I think you are getting the best number we will see.
Well, I wouldn't hate that, obviously, but this is, like I said, it's just this funny time. Only a few games left. Public could drive a number here, and recency bias is a big deal right now. So
another reason I like you getting the underdog at nearly a touchdown is I'm taking the under. I'm taking the under 53.5, also at BetMGM at neg 110. People are going to focus on Ohio State scoring 40 points in back-to-back playoff games. They're going to focus on Jeremiah Smith being the best college receiver we've seen since Calvin Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald. But they are overlooking Texas's great defense. This Arizona State double overtime game. Arizona State had 10 scoring opportunities, scored only 31 points. That's 3.1 points per scoring opportunity. I know the math is really hard. Going into that game on the season, Arizona State had averaged 4.09 points per scoring opportunity, number 31 in the country. Texas took away one of Arizona State's greatest strengths, and that's how they escaped that. I think they could do that to Ohio State again. And we keep mentioning recency bias. Like, Ohio State regressing toward the mean is bad news. Texas regressing toward the mean is good news. Ohio State regressing toward the mean is going to be an offense slowing down. Texas regressing toward the mean is going to be his defense showing the 8 points against Arizona State was more real than the 16 points that Cam Scadaboo found late in that game. I like this under. I think it fits all of our thoughts here. I think Texas's defense is underappreciated, and it will relish the chance to show that.
I've said that. I think Texas has an underrated defense, and they've kind of not played up to their full ability this season, and kind of how Ohio State did earlier in the season. But Texas is this group's really, really good. That said, I'm going to go with Jeremiah Smith get 100 plus receiving yards at plus 175 because the dude is a freak. He's a straight freak, and I am happy that Ryan Day is just let him go. Just huck it up, son. Like, he's just letting Will Howard huck it up to him, and why not? He, like you said, maybe he's the best wide receiver prospect since Calvin Johnson. I think he'd be starting in an NFL game this Sunday if he was available to. Like, that's how good he is. It's really impressive to watch. And I talked earlier about the little nuances of how he runs routes. He does the little things well. He's a really, really talented player. Obviously, he's gone off the last couple of weeks here. I think, 4 touchdowns and 290 yards. He probably could have had closer to 250 too if he hadn't kind of shut it down and in the second half there against Oregon. I think he gets to the century mark again. He's going to be a big part of this offense. Good defenses aside, big players make plays, and he's going to make plays in this one. I'll take the 100 yards. I'll get him to get the century mark. And the receiving total is about 79.5, 80, depending on the book. But I'll just take the plus money. I think he'll hit that again this week or whenever the game is.
I liked you saying that said about my under because, yeah, I've got 2 player props here, and they are both scoring focused. So my under gets a little tricky, but they are also – I'm going to make these a combination as I rattle them off because in my head, at least one of these 2 has to happen. Ohio State has 2 means to scoring, in my opinion, especially against this Texas defense I just laid out, is excellent in the red zone. Texas's defense ranks number 2 in the country in points allowed per scoring opportunity at barely 2. So Texas has 2 means. Ohio State has 2 means of scoring. 1, throw it up to Jeremiah Smith. Give me 2+ touchdowns for Jeremiah Smith at plus 460.
Look at that guy.
He is most effective from 30 and 40 yards out. They are going to try to get him in space in the secondary. If that happens twice, cash it. Now, if that doesn't happen twice, it's because Ohio State is getting into the red zone, at which point the field gets tight. This is where Texas excels. Ohio State's going to be looking for an extra blocker. You've heard me say it before. You've heard me say it today. It's been a profitable prop this season. If Ohio State needs an extra blocker where the field matters most, keep the ball, Will Howard. Give me a Will Howard anytime touchdown at plus 230 and ask those running backs to clear space against that Texas defensive line.
That's a really good price. We haven't seen that price on that touchdown in a little while. I don't hate that at all. Just to
now, I want to say I'm not anticipating all 3 touchdowns. I am anticipating one or the other. Either hit Jeremiah Smith
he's saying he's fine,
or get to the goal line and go to Will Howard.
And there's profit in betting both of them. He's plus EV when he's making these wagers, and hopefully one hits and we come out on top there. But I'm going to try to put another knife in your under here. I'm taking Quinn Ewers over 1.5 touchdown passes in this one. I see a lot of roots to this happening. One, Texas comes in with a good game plan. They run the football. They have a balanced offense. Quinn Ewers is a really good quarterback. We saw him throw for 3 touchdowns last week. He has multiple touchdowns in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games this season. Torched a Michigan defense, which is very good for 3 touchdowns. No interceptions in that one. I think that Texas, like I said, they have if they balance the run. And let Quinn Ewers do his thing. As long as he doesn't make too many mistakes, they should be able to move the football on this one. And I think he is their avenue to scoring points over 1.5 touchdown passes. That's plus 106 over at FanDuel. Really, really like these passing touchdown props in the playoffs right now. And I think he gets there in this one. And the other way is Ohio State is crushing them, and they have to throw the ball. And we get one early, and we get one late, and there's the other avenue for you there.
I see value in that, if for no other reason than, as we mentioned earlier, he looks full go again, and that alone creates value. If you agree with us and appreciate how good he looks against Arizona State, there's going to be value just on that thought alone that he's back to top 10 draft pick Quinn Ewers type of performance. That pays out here. We're going to thread a needle. That's what I'm going to choose to believe. We're going to thread some needles with this game. We're going to just have a 28-23 result where I hit my under, and we can get all these touchdown props home. And your Texas plus 6.5.
Yeah, 28-24 sounds great. Reasonable. 28-23 is a weird score. 24 seems much more reasonable. Missed field goal. That Texas kicker's looking a little shaky right now.
Let's not go looking for kicker props here.
I
think we've gone nearly half an hour on the 2 semifinal games, and we've done it right out of the gates in the week. So I think we've done our part here, Andrew. I think we should recap the bets and get out of here and remind everybody to like and subscribe to College Football 134 to get ready to close this season strongly.
I can't believe we're almost done. But yeah, we're going to go Notre Dame minus 1.5. I think they get to the Natty Championship game. We're also going with the under 23.5 in the first half. Going to fight you a bit on the over there. Nick Singleton over 26.5 reception yards as Drew Aller's safety valve in this matchup. Then I'm going with Texas plus 6.5. Jeremiah Smith, 100+ receiving yards. That's plus 175. He's done that in 2 straight games. Quinn Ewers, over 1.5 touchdown passes, plus 106.
I am anticipating Notre Dame to approach the Orange Bowl, and no, complimentary football in this occasion requires some offense, and therefore I'm taking the over 46.5, neg 110 in the Orange Bowl. If Notre Dame's offense needs to score, Riley Leonard anytime touchdown, plus 110 at Bet365. And then in the Texas home game Cotton Bowl, give me the under 53.5, as these are 2 of the best defenses in the country, and that is not appreciated enough. But also, give me Jeremiah Smith, 2+ touchdowns, plus 460 at FanDuel. And give me a Will Howard anytime touchdown, plus 230 at FanDuel, as we're going to get a little weird with that under and some touchdowns.
I love it. It's spicy. Hey, that's the type of thing that the SGP algorithms hate. That's where you find it. I can already hear the WhatsApp notification coming from Jared Hockman asking me, hey, have you looked at that SGP price? It's like 22-1. I can hear it coming already. Exactly. It's, hey, we don't predicate for a lot of same game parlays here, but one of the ones that break the algorithm like that, those are the ones to maybe to sniff around a bit.
It is effectively saying there will be few points, but the only points that can be found are going to be. But like you said, we don't suggest those because they are generally bad process. On that note, we will be back after the semifinals, and we will be back again with a live show before the national championship game on January 20th. That is Andrew Caley at covers_Caley. I am Douglas Farmer at D_Farmer. We will be back in your feed soon as we finish this 2024 college football season.